Good evening. My name is Courtney, and I'd like to welcome you to the Village of Orland Park Telephone Town Hall meeting. If you would like to ask a question, press star 3 now to be connected. I'll be back on the line in just a little bit to explain more about how to participate. But first, allow me to introduce your hosts, Mayor Dan McLaughlin and Trustee Jim Dodge. Mayor McLaughlin?
Good evening, Orland Park. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. This is our fourth telephone town hall meeting since 2015. If you remember, if you've been on these calls before, you know the first one we concentrate on road work, traffic congestion, that kind of thing. The second telephone town hall, we talked about police and public safety. And then we talked about the village finances and property taxes the last time. We had so many questions there, we thought we would do that same topic again this time, although we'll take questions on any subjects. I would like to thank Jim Dodge. Trustee Jim Dodge is the chairman of the Technology Committee, and he's been working with this and initiated this in 2015. It's been very, very well received. And Jim, got a couple words to say?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Just a quick background for everyone on the call. As Dan mentioned, we've done this now 3 or 4 times, and it's part of an ongoing effort on behalf of the full board to make sure that we do everything we can to keep people updated and open up those lines of communications, and then we obviously can hear what's on your mind. We care deeply about Orland Park, right? This is about the residents of Orland Park, so we want to make sure that we do as many things as we can so that we hear from you what's on your mind, the questions you'd like answered. So as Dan said, tonight we're going to focus on village finances and property taxes, but by no means, if there's a question that you'd like to ask of the village, please do that, and we'll take as many questions as we can. And then if you leave us the contact information, we will make sure that we get an answer back to you. So, Courtney?
Thank you so much, Trustee Dodge. And again, in just a moment, we're going to open it up for questions. But first, I want to go over a couple housekeeping items. If you'd like to ask a question, it's very easy. At any time, you can press star 3 on your touch-tone phone, and you'll be put in line to speak with one of our staff members. They'll pop on and take down your name, and we'll try to get to your question as quickly as possible. The next time you hear your name by the mayor, Trustee Dodge, or myself, you'll be live to the entire conference, and you'll be able to ask your question directly. If we're unable to get to your question this evening, you will have an opportunity to leave a voicemail at the end of the call, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. So again, that's press star 3 to ask a question this evening. I'll hand it over to Trustee Dodge to begin taking questions. Trustee Dodge?
All right, Dan, looks like we've got a couple of questions come in. One is around the plan for public transportation. So can we open up that line so they can ask the question? Fire.
This is Dr. Shastri. I just wanted to ask you, I have sent you a letter and as well as an email, and I did ask you this question on the last town hall meeting about having public bus transportation in South Orland Park, and I just wanted to ask your opinion about what you think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. We do get this question often. Unfortunately, we have to work with Metra and PACE to try and provide more and more public transportation. In the years that I've been on the board, we have substantially increased the Metra service by lobbying with Metra, but they have certain criteria before they add new trains. So we are constantly asking them to add train service to the Southwest line. In addition, PACE has increased their bus service to the area and through the area. But in addition, I'll just add that the village has kind of experimented over the years with providing trolleys, especially when the traffic at Christmas time is heavy. So we've provided trolley service to get people around without always having to use your own cars. So we're doing different things, but we need more service from Metra and PACE, and we're working on that constantly.
Okay. Dan, looks like we've got some questions around property taxes. So, Joe, do you want to go ahead and ask your question of the mayor?
Sure. The paperwork that you sent in the mail recently said that their property taxes are flat, but my property tax to the Village of Orland Park has been going up, even though my assessed value has gone down. So could you speak to that, please?
Sure. We have not raised the tax levy in the last 6 years, but because the assessed valuation did go down a little bit with the economy, that has increased your tax bill slightly, but we have not raised the tax levy in the last 6 years. That's what that was referring to.
All right. So, it looks like there's a question from Brad. Brad, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure, thanks. A couple of questions. One is specific around the I-80 corridor. You recently reviewed plans on conceptual plans related to that particular area, and I didn't see any specifics about entertainment, i.e. gambling. It wasn't excluded as one of the things that you don't want to see. At least maybe I missed something. And then I have a secondary question regarding the Orland Square Mall, and I know that Sears is experiencing a number of store closures, and at some point I think they're going to go out of business. Obviously the real estate, I don't know if they own that particular parcel or if Simon DeBartolo owns it as part of that whole mall structure, but I also know that Macy's is potentially going to be sold possibly to a Canadian firm, Hudson's, and I didn't know whether or not, we've taken into consideration large retailers that potentially would vacate those spaces, and how the village is working with Simon DeBartolo, the property owners of the mall, to, what would happen with those large spaces.
Well, I can answer some of that, and then I'm going to ask Carrie Freiling, who's our Director of Planning, who works with Simon regularly, is meeting with them continually through the course of the year on a lot of different issues. But let me just say that Sears has had problems for several years, and the latest we've talked to Simon about is that Sears is still planning on holding on to some of the products like Craftsman tools that they're still very successful with, and a couple other lines, and that it sounds like what they might be doing is downsizing the actual Sears operation at the Orland Square Mall and just take one floor. The other floor would be possibly redeveloped with other uses. Carrie, can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, we've been in constant contact with both Seritage, which is the real estate owner of the Sears store at Orland Square Mall. It's not owned by Simon, as well as with Simon, who is headquartered out in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we are diligently working with them on a possible long-term redevelopment plan of the mall that would include the south side of the mall where Sears is located, in concert with what Sears' long-term plans are as they remain a viable retail establishment in the United States, knowing that they have been downsizing quite a bit, but also allowing for the opportunities for the village to collaborate with both Simon and Sears. We've done plans up internally that are conceptual on how we can continue to move forward in the event that Sears does determine that they no longer need to have a presence in Orland Park. And as those talks continue to be had between the mayor and the village board and the relevant partners, we'll continue to keep the community apprised of those.
And I will add that it makes it a little bit complicated when the anchors of Orland Square own their properties along with their parking lots. So it becomes a little bit complicated trying to plan with them. And back to your first question, I think you referred to the I-80 corridor. Just real quick, I-80 was unincorporated many years ago, and we annexed it after several years of discussing and working with Mokina and Tinley Park. Then we put the infrastructure into the I-80 corridor, infrastructure and utilities, mainly Orland Parkway, so we had access to the property. As we started marketing it, 3 or 4 uses came in pretty quick. Horton Insurance put their corporate headquarters there, Technical Publishing, St. Xavier. So we had some development, and then the economy tanked. So we have recently been working for the last almost 2 years with the property owners to develop a comprehensive plan for that area that both the village and the landowners agree will be good for that area. And because it's in the Will County part of Orland Park, the taxes on businesses are 2/3 less. We think now that we have a comprehensive plan, we'll be in a good position to start marketing it and developing that area again now that the economy is coming back. I hope that answered your questions.
Okay. All right. So again, it's if you'd like to ask a question, hit *3, and then we can take the questions. Dan, it looks like there's a couple of questions around roads. So how are we fixing roads? Some specific questions about subdivisions. So why don't we take Phil Anderson? You want to ask your question?
Hey, Mayor. There's the Fernley subdivision. It had started repaving the streets and doing the curbs and gutters. I just wondered when the side streets were going to be done. Hello.
Yes.
Hang on.
Hi. This is John Ingram, Public Works Director. We started a project in 2016, and we repaved 2 streets in the subdivision. We're anticipating doing the entire subdivision over a multi-year period, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 9 years. We're really happy with the way that it's been working out. In conjunction with the roads, we're also redoing all the ditches and replacing the culvert pipes that cross the street.
That is a very big project that we've been working on. Excuse me. That's a very big project and complicated.
It's a large project. The overall cost is expected to be more than $10 million once completed.
All right. So Dan, we got a question about parks. So why don't we take the question from Todd, and then we'll also touch on the question from Kate as well around the pool. So if you could take Joan's question. I'm sorry, Todd's question. Excuse me, Todd, you're live.
Okay. Well, my question's about enjoying the out of doors in Orland Park. With all the retention ponds that are in the village, could there possibly be an investment made in these ponds to make them a viable fishery that young and old can enjoy?
Yeah. I'll tell you, a lot of the retention ponds really wouldn't work to stock with fish, but we do stock fish at Lake Sedgwick out at Centennial Park. And John, do you want to jump in? There's a couple. We also have. I know there's fishing at the pond in front of the old police station.
Yeah. In addition to Lake Sedgwick, the pond by the old police station is also very good for fishing. We stock a number of ponds throughout the village on an annual basis. As the mayor indicated, a lot of the ponds aren't really viable for fish because they're very shallow, so the fish would not be able to survive during the colder frozen winter months.
Okay. All right. But we've got Dan, there's a couple questions here on economic development, the walkable downtown in 9750. So why don't we take Jean's question? Jean?
Hi. I was just wondering what happened with the walkable downtown Orland Park now that the University of Chicago has gone in there. I thought that the plans were to be more of a walkable community rather than how it is set up now with a parking lot and multiple apartment buildings being built.
Well, the downtown area is about 27 acres, and it was always intended to be a pedestrian-friendly or walkable TOD, transit-oriented development, and a mixed use. So in that mixed use, we want a mixed use of residential and commercial, but also office. And the University of Chicago provides office space that will actually produce a tremendous amount of foot traffic once it's open fully and fully scheduled. But there has to be some parking in that area. We are working with other potential users to build other facilities in the 27-acre triangle, and including restaurants. When it's all built out, it will be a very friendly, walkable downtown area. But you're only seeing the first stage of it at this point, and I think it's been very successful with the apartment building, at 95% occupancy and providing people coming and going to the train station, as well as to Mariano's now. There's just a lot of action that's starting to take place, but there's still a lot of development to take place as well. So I think you'll see a lot more in the next year or so.
Okay. So Dan, we have a question from Don around some of the financials on 9750. Don, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. You have said that 9750 is performing well, and in 2013 and 2014, the financial information for 9750 was listed in the comprehensive annual report. However, in 2015, that information was no longer listed. It said that there was only $847,000 in debt service, which was well below the plan of $2.5 million. Why is the debt not being serviced, and why is that information no longer listed in the comprehensive report?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Anne Marie, our finance director, to answer some of that, because I'm not sure what you're referring to in the 2015 annual report. I thought we did have all that information.
Yes, this is Anne Marie. I'm the finance director for the village. That information is in our annual CAFR, in the 2015 CAFR. It's on the village's website. There are debt schedules in there that show the debt service payments on each of the bond issues that we have outstanding, both those related to the 9750 building as well as any other ones. There's also a line of credit related to that project that is also reflected in our financial statements and in the footnotes. If you have any other questions on that, if you want to get the information off the village's website, you could call me directly.
All right. We have Dan, there's a question from Susan around Payless Health. So why don't we take that question? Susan? Right. Hang on, Susan. We'll get there you go. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Now that the village has acquired the Payless Health and Fitness Center, I was hoping that there would be some resident benefit to using the indoor pool. I know that you had talked about building an indoor pool on the Sportsplex, but now with the Health and Fitness Center, that is going to serve as the indoor pool. Yet, if you're not a member, you cannot use that facility. There are no swim lessons offered through the village, and I was kind of hoping that would be the next step.
Well, I would say, first of all, we've only just acquired it, and we spent a lot of time putting a schedule together for fees. No matter if we had built a pool at the Sportsplex or taking over this pool, the cost is tremendous. We have to charge a reasonable fee, but residents do have a break on the fee compared to non-residents. Classes and other programs coming up in the future that our staff is looking at that would be available to families and kids, and there are some opportunities to get discounts on 10-day passes and joint membership between the Sportsplex and the Payless or the Orland Fitness Center now. So there's different things we're working on, but residents do have a better price or better membership fee than non-residents. But that pool we took over needs a lot of work and maintenance as well right now, and those fees that we came up with are very similar to what Payless Fitness Center was charging when they had it.
Okay. All right, Dan, there's a question around some phone calls folks are looking for, solicitations, what they think is the police department. So Linda, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you. Yes, this is Linda, and periodically the last, I would say, at least 8 years, we get a call from the same gentleman, and it's a private number, so I don't have the number, can't get it, indicating that they're collecting for the Orland Park Police Department and looking for donations. And they're very friendly. Hi, how you doing? And then I question a little more, well, what kind of donations? Well, cash or check, and you make the check out to a union. and you just put it in the door. They come in the neighborhood, they say, and pick up, several people give, and then they say your neighbors do too. Is anyone there aware of this? That this
I'm gonna
goes on?
let the police chief answers this occasionally because people do call us.
Yeah.
Tim, do you want to?
Yeah, Linda, this is Chief McCarthy from the police department. In fact, our patrol officers union every year goes out for solicitations, and the money does not go to the police department. We hear the complaint from time to time that why is the police department doing it? We're not. Their union is doing it on their behalf, and they collect funds and use that for collective bargaining. Our advice to anyone on any telephone solicitation is to hang up immediately and not cooperate. That goes not only for the police union, but any telephone solicitations, because so many of them right now are being done for almost criminal reasons. So it does happen every year. We are aware of it. We carry the complaints to the president of the Patrol Officers Union that people are concerned, yet they have the right to do it, and they do it. But you're absolutely right, but the money does not go to the Orland Park Police Department or the Village of Orland Park.
Okay. All right, thanks, Tim. So Dan, it looks like we've got 3 questions that are related around trains. So we've got a question from Wayne and from well, you know what? Let's take Wayne and Marcia. They're similar questions, so why don't we take Wayne's question? Wayne, go ahead.
Much. I've been a resident of Orland for about 40 years, and 3 adult kids, and all doing very well. We've really enjoyed Orland and all the wonderful things that have been accomplished within the village over the years. My question relates to both my kids, adult kids, 2 of them anyway, moved out of Orland. Everybody loved Orland, but the train service was terrible, so they moved over to the western suburbs where you have the train service. As a result, we're going to be moving too to be closer to the grandkids as well, so we'll be leaving Orland Park after 40 years, moving over in the western suburbs up to Darien to be with the grandkids. So my question is, and went across the train section there on 143rd Street for many, many years, and there's only one single track. And unless you have 2 tracks there, you're not going to increase the train service. How realistic, and this has been an issue been talked about for years since we came to Orland, we're going to increase it. Well, that's been over a 40-year period, at least from my viewpoint. So at least the increase of a train service is sort of beyond my lifetime. But what about for future generations and for the growth of the village? You need to do that. And how realistic is it to expect that to be accomplished?
Well, you did mention one of the key problems is there's two tracks in some areas, but one in other areas. That is the biggest problem. But if you've been out here 40 years, I'm out here almost not quite 40 years, so you've seen the train service go from, I think, about 7 trains a day to, is there 22 now? Something like that coming and going. So the service has increased. What I'm really hoping, though, I still think even with the single track, there's going to be room to put some more trains into the schedule. And when they opened up the 179th Street train station and then extended service further south of Orland, I'm hoping that it's going to be adding enough new areas to draw from that they'll have the need to add more train service. The one thing we probably won't ever have is the express service, which is what we really want, and that's what some of the west suburbs have, and that you need the 2 tracks for. But I do think we'll get more service out here.
Yeah, it's Jim Dodge, and I live down at the south end of town, and I'm close enough either to take the southwest service or the Rock Island by driving a little farther. And over the years, my office is downtown. I drive the extra distance to go to the Rock Island because of the service. And for my time on the Metro Board, I can assure you that Metro owns the lines for the Rock Island, but they have a service lease on freight lines essentially for the Southwest. So hopefully with federal dollars and some smart investments from Metro in the future, they could fix some of the bottlenecks and improve the service. But it's a pretty expensive proposition, which is one of the challenges we've been wrestling with. Okay. All right. So,
about
Paul?
Okay,
let's do Paul. Courtney?
All right. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Trustee Dodge. For those of you that would like to ask a question, please press *3 on your phone now. And again, we're on the line with Mayor McLaughlin and Trustee Dodge, and that's *3 if you'd like to ask a question. And now we'd like to ask our question to you all, our listening audience, and have you use your touch-tone phone to respond. And our question is, what is Orland Park's retail vacancy rate? Press 1 for 0 to 5%. Press 2 for 5 to 10%. Press 3 for 10 to 20%. Again, that is, what is Orland Park's retail vacancy rate? Press 1 for 0 to 5%. Press 2 for 5 to 10%. Or press 3 for 10 to 20%. Trustee Dodge?
Okay. I'll just jump in and just say that these polls that we ask you kind of give us an idea of what everybody thinks about some of these key issues, and it's always interesting, and I'll report back in a few minutes on the results of that poll, and we'll try and do 2 more poll questions through the night.
Okay. All right, so Dan, we got a couple of questions on economic development. Why don't we take Joyce? You want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, I'd like to know, I understand that the University of Chicago does not own that public parking lot on 143rd, that the people of Orland paid for, and they are owned by them. What are we going to do with that, and how much did it cost the people of Orland to put that now vacant, because there was nobody in it the other day, parking lot?
Well, the parking garage is relatively new, and University of Chicago paid over 75% of it. I think the parking garage was a little over $14 million, and I believe they paid a little over $11 million. But here's the issue I brought up earlier. This whole downtown area is only 27 acres, and we have plans to have several restaurants, retail uses, other office potentially. There needs to be parking in the area, so this parking garage will not be full right now. But as more development comes into that triangle, we won't need to add more parking lots because we have the garage. But the University of Chicago paid for about $11 million of the $14 million of the garage. So I think it will work out to be a huge plus for that area and for the village of Orland Park.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mayor. And our poll results are in. 16% of you all think that the retail vacancy rate is 0 to 5%. 51% said the vacancy rate is 5 to 10%. And 33% said that the vacancy rate they thought was between 10 and 20%. Mayor, would you like to comment on these results?
Yeah, I really do, because this is one of those areas that we're very proud of. We have over 12 million square feet of commercial property in Orland, and our retail vacancy rate is 3.16%. So ultimately, we have 97% occupied, which is really outstanding because the region is considerably higher. So we have one of the best occupancy rates in the Chicago area. So the only thing I can assume is that some of the people that think there's a lot higher vacancy rate might be that they live in an area where they see a couple of stores vacant, but there's always turnover. We fill the vacancies relatively quick in Orland because there's a lot of businesses coming into Orland Park. In the last 3 years, we've had over 300 businesses come into the village. So we're very happy about our vacancy rate, or our occupancy rate, I should say, and kind of proud of the fact that we've made this a very business-friendly community.
All right. So Dan, we a couple of questions related to economic development here, particularly around I-80. Kind of broadly what's going on there. So we got a question from Patrick and from Martin. Martin, why don't we take your question?
Thank you, Mayor. As far as the I-80 campus plan, what steps remain for the village to complete their review and approvals? And then who's going to be responsible for marketing that? Is it the individual owners, the village, the individual realtors who have signs posted out there, or just who?
It's a combination. First of all, we just approved at our Monday night meeting the final plan, the comprehensive plan for that area that our staff spent over a year and a half working with the property owners to develop. And I believe all of us are very happy with the way this plan came out. Now, the village constantly has businesses call us and ask us. They want to move into the area. They ask us what space is around. Carrie Friley and her staff will direct them to look at different areas. But the property owners, too, are marketing their own property. They want to sell that property. When you see real estate signs out there, those real estate signs are generally real estate companies that the property owners hired or signed a contract with. So the real estate dealers are marketing the property for the property owners, but the village obviously will do our best to bring the right types of uses into that area as well. And like I said earlier, but the fact that it's I-80 corridors predominantly in Will County, that will help us market that quite a bit because the tax rate for businesses in Will County is 2/3 less than Cook County taxes for businesses.
Okay. All right, so Dan, a couple of questions come up. So they're around LaGrange Road, and so it'll be crosswalks, but LaGrange Road with traffic lights and then U-turn. So Andy, Mike, and Lori, thanks for asking your question. Mike, why don't you take your question, and Dan, if you could also touch on what Andy and Lori are concerned about as well.
Hello?
Yep, Mike.
Go ahead. Yeah, this is Mike. I'm been in Orland over 20 years, and thank you for being our mayor. But I'm really glad you got LaGrange done. But one complaint or question I have is, anyone ever consider traffic light control? Because if I drive on LaGrange, I make every light. I catch every red light, no matter if I go 5 under or 5 over. Now, maybe if you really flew, you can make all the lights, but that's good. So you didn't save any time that way.
Yeah.
Now, on Michigan Avenue in the city and even Western Avenue, if you drive 30, 33 miles an hour, you'll make most of the lights. Has anyone looked into that?
Absolutely. But I'll start by saying this is a big project that IDOT ran, and one of the last components is actually the stoplights, the signals. And there was no timing of the lights. There really wasn't timing done yet because most of the signals aren't in. You've got temporary signals there, and IDOT wouldn't make any attempt to try and time the temporary signals. So this spring, early spring, IDOT will be finished with the signals, and then their study will determine how they do the timing of the lights, but they are pretty good at it, and that will be done as soon as the permanent signals are up. Kurt, I don't know if you have anything to add to that?
No, that's once the permanent signals are installed, IDOT will come out with their signal control engineers and monitor the intersections for the whole corridor, take the traffic counts Monday through Friday at all the peak hours, and start to determine what the best programming is for LaGrange Road and start to make adjustments. The village is very we have a good working relationship with IDOT as far as the traffic signals go and their timings, and they're very aware of how we want it to operate. So we continue to monitor it on a daily basis, even in the temporary condition, and we'll continue to do that in the permanent condition.
And there's a couple other people that had similar questions about LaGrange Road. So the U-turns are actually permitted in Illinois anywhere that there isn't a sign that says they're not permitted. And when IDOT widens a road to 3 lanes now, not now, but over the last number of years, IDOT will not allow left turn lanes across 3 lanes. So when you do have 3 lanes, like we just expanded LaGrange to, and 3 lanes in each direction, they won't allow left turns. So you have to go to the next intersection, do a U-turn, and come back. So U-turns are legal, but they're legal anywhere in Illinois where it doesn't have a sign that says no U-turn. There was another question about the plannings and that. So the signals will be finished, the permanent signals will be finished by June is IDOT's schedule. And then for the rest of the summer, you'll see the landscape medians go in, the landscaping on the right-of-ways, and the remaining sidewalks finished and all that. So the signals will be finished, the timing of the lights will be done, but the landscaping and aesthetics will be going on through the course of the summer. But there was somebody else that asked a question about the flags. That's kind of interesting.
The crosswalk flags, right?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because that really stemmed from the Boy Scouts, a Boy Scout that was working on his Eagle Scout badge that came to me and asked if there was a project he could work on. and I had seen those crosswalk flags in another town on the north side, in the north suburbs, so I suggested that to him. So it was really the Boy Scouts that did that, and we took 5 or 6 intersections this year for him to do as an Eagle Scout project. But we identified 5 or 6 where we think there's a considerable amount of foot traffic to do really as a test. So assuming that works well and people like these crosswalk flags, we will expand it in the future. But that was an Eagle Scout project that we were happy with the way that turned out this year.
Okay, so Dan, there's one other question that came up about roads in terms of 159th Street. Why don't you touch on it? So Lynn, Lynn, do you want to go ahead and ask your question around 159th?
You had a timeline on how long this new construction will take. It's wonderful that they're doing it, but it's getting to be a nightmare.
Yes, it is. I can't get to 159th anymore off 104th, so we all feel the pain. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, it really is very frustrating. There's some reasons for it, and I'm going to ask Kurt to jump in here because he meets almost daily with IDOT on LaGrange Road as well as 159th Street. And there's some complications with soil conditions and some other things. But Kurt, do you want to jump in and give a little bit of a timeline for what 159th is looking like?
Yeah, as it's scheduled now, IDOT is planning to start paving the south side of the road in April. Before that, you'll see the pile driving and the box culvert structures at Marley Creek around 104th continue to be constructed. There are thousands and thousands of feet of piles that are needed to be constructed in that area of 104th because of the bad soil conditions. Starting in June, July, you'll start to see traffic switch to the south side of the road, and then the whole operation starts again on the north side. Right now, IDOT's schedule is the project to be completed in February, March of 2018.
All right, thanks.
Okay. All right, so Dan and Tim, we've got some questions. So we'll let Joanne ask it, but it's broadly around the mall. Okay. So Joanne, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, I am so concerned about going to the mall in the evening when I read everything in the blotter about so many women's purses being stolen and a lot of action going on at the mall that I'm wondering if we have enough canvassing of the police there. And also in our Brook Hills, they have broken into cars here. And I'm wondering if the cops are able to canvass a little bit more.
All right. Well, I'm gonna ask the chief to answer that, but I will tell you they do an outstanding job, and the crime statistics at Orland Square are actually one of the best in the Chicago area. It's one of the safest shopping centers in the Chicago area. Tim, why don't you expand a little on that?
Yeah, Joanne, this is Chief McCarthy, and there have been some purse thefts at the mall, but in particular, this shopping season is one of the safest shopping seasons in our history. And while there are property crimes there from time to time, we focus a great deal on any type of crimes against person or violent crimes. I've assigned literally dozens of officers in and around the mall, and when you compare it to shopping malls throughout the Chicagoland area, it is clearly the safest. We also saw as high as a 16% increase in retail sales, and that's unofficial at this time. It'll take a while to determine that. So we had a lot more shopping than ever before. They had some of their largest crowds the day after Thanksgiving and the day after Christmas. But I assure you, there are few crimes, or no crimes, quite frankly, against persons at the mall. But there have been property crimes. They're very difficult when people do it the way they do it to detect that. But it was a great shopping season. Not one burglary from a motor vehicle at the mall. But crime does occur everywhere in all of our communities. But this year, violent crime in Orland Park went down again by about 8%. But we also have 90 more businesses in Orland Park, so retail thefts and a few more thefts of wallets did occur, no question about that. But overall, it's one of the safest shopping seasons we've had, and crime went down, violent crime went down again in Orland Park this year. But more can be done. We've assigned many, many officers to our retail areas throughout the shopping season around the year, and we'll do as much as we can with what we have. And we're pretty well staffed, and we'll continue to work on it.
And I will add, the police did a great job this year. We We had a number of people up at the shopping center in uniform and undercover, and the stores in Orland Square went out of their way recently to applaud the village's efforts in policing Orland Square and having a major presence there. I kind of was interested in the one store in particular. The Apple store said in the last 3 months they had 330,000 customers in that store, and they generally, if they had an issue with somebody trying to use a phony credit card or some pass a bad check or something, they called the police. We had so many people there that the average response time was a minute. So the stores in Orland Square are very happy with our performance, and even the FBI statistics show us as one of the safest communities in the state. So we're pretty happy about that. But it's a never-ending job. We will continue to stay on top of it.
All right. So Dan, we have a question, and we'll go to a poll here in just a second. Michelle has a question about the flooding on 143rd and some outdoor usage. So Michelle, you can go ahead and ask your question. Michelle, you still with us?
Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, this is Janet. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure that you were addressing me. So my question on the flooding of 143rd just west of Wolf Road, it's the wetlands that have always sometimes closed the street. And I'm just curious as far as the timeline when that's going to be addressed. And then I had another quick question regarding when will the beautiful bike trails that Orland has be accessible to the Creekside subdivision, because we are trapped by busy streets, 143rd and Wolf Road, and we don't have any sidewalks or trails that lead us to all the bike trails.
Well, I'll try and answer both questions, and I might turn to Kurt to give a little more on 143rd Street. First of all, we add money in our budget every year. Every year we are trying to expand or add or connect bike paths and walking paths, because that's an important issue for us. So your particular area, I really don't know what to tell you tonight as far as where that fits into the plans. I can look at it and get back to you. But every year when we're doing our budget, we add bike paths and walking paths throughout the village, and a lot of times we're connecting paths that don't meet up. So we try and address some of that every year. On 143rd Street, it's an IDOT, it's a state road, and we have been in the process of trying to improve 143rd from downtown or 143rd and Southwest Highway roughly to Wilcook Road. We've done phase 1 engineering on that area. Phase 2 engineering we were in the process of phase 2 engineering. We needed right away from the Forest Preserve to even continue. So that stalled us quite a bit. A couple of years of talking and negotiating with the Forest Preserve District, and we worked out an arrangement with them that they will dedicate or give us the right of way we need to widen 143rd Street, and we will trade them property elsewhere that's contiguous to a Forest Preserve. So when 143rd Street is improved and widened, that flooded area will be taken care of. But right now it is a problem, and it will be addressed with the widening and improvement of 143rd. The problem is the state has not put the money for the full construction of 143rd in their budget yet. The village came up with funding for phase 1 engineering and phase 2 engineering, and worked out the arrangements with the Forest Preserve for right-of-way acquisition through the Forest Preserves. Now we need to, and we are lobbying for IDOT and the state to include money for construction in their budget. So I don't have a time frame or a schedule. I would tell you we're hoping sooner than later, hopefully the next couple of years.
Okay. Should we do a poll?
Yeah, there's a second question we were going to ask.
All right. Courtney?
Yeah. Again, if you are joining us, please press *3 to ask Mayor or Trustee Dodge a question. And now we'd like to ask our listening audience a question, and please use your touch-tone phone to respond. The village has refunded $39 million in property taxes to homeowners 12 of the last 15 years. Should the village continue to refund a portion of taxes paid to the village or apply the money to other programs? Press 1 if you feel the village should continue the property tax rebate, or press 2 if you feel the village should keep the money and apply it to other programs. Again, the question is, should the village continue to refund a portion of taxes paid to the village or apply the money to other programs? Press 1 if you feel the village should continue the property tax rebate, or press 2 if you feel the village should keep the money and apply it to other programs. And let's take another question.
All right. So we're going to take a few questions, Dan. There's a couple of questions around the 143rd and LaGrange area, some of the properties. So why don't we take Barbara's question, and then Dan, also why don't we talk to what Tim and Sharon brought up as well.
All right.
Barbara?
Yes, thank you. I've lived in Orland for 37 years. I love it. Congratulations to everybody for all they've done to make this the best suburb in Illinois. My question is, the Bar Louie restaurant that's just south of 143rd on LaGrange Road has been vacant for a number of years. It's a nice property. It was a nice restaurant. I'm wondering why nothing's been done to try to fill it with somebody.
All right. Well, let me try and answer that by saying a couple things. First of all, in particular, the Bar Louie property is in foreclosure. So until they settle that and get it out of foreclosure, they can't really do anything with it. We are very anxious to get that property back online because it's in a great location, walking distance to the downtown area and all the action that's going on there, and right on LaGrange Road. So it's a great property. But I will add this on vacancies in general. We talked about how low our vacancy rate is, and we do have, we do have the opportunity to try and help property owners and building owners fill their spaces because so many businesses come to us looking for the right spot. But there are one thing we can't control, and that's the price that the owners want for that property. So sometimes you will get somebody that thinks their property is worth way more than the general market's prepared to pay, so it will stay vacant longer until they get a little more reasonable with their price or they find the right buyer. But sometimes we can't control what the owner wants for their property. But the Bar Louie in particular is in foreclosure, so there's not much we can do there. In that same general area though, you'll see a new Burger King going up. McDonald's is going to be rebuilt, and then Wendy's was got a new plan coming in for the Wendy's property, and the southeast corner of LaGrange Road has plans in our planning department right now that they're looking at. I did see somebody else ask a question about the Terry's Lincoln Mercury property.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that's a property that was originally bought by Pete's Market from Terry's Lincoln Mercury, and Pete's Market and Mariano's were both in our planning process about the same time. Mariano's went through the system a little faster, and they got up and running faster. So Pete's Market put that property on the market. They decided apparently that they did not want to. They no longer wanted to try and build on that spot. So I know I've heard that they have a buyer online, but I don't know who that is yet. I'm sure when that sale takes place, our planning department will hear about it first as new developers come in to do something with the property. But like I said earlier, our vacancy rate is very good, and we have a lot of turnover. When you do have a business that goes out of business for different reasons, they generally are filled pretty quick. Bar Louie just happens to be a frustrating piece of property because it's in foreclosure.
Okay,
I hope that answered some of the questions.
Thanks, Dan. So we have a question from Tony. So Tony, we'll go ahead and have you ask your question. So Dan, it's broadly around some of the initiatives around saving money or some environmental questions. So Tony?
Thanks for all your hard work, gentlemen. Two things. One, I know we're at the mercy of the city of Chicago and Oak Lawn with the water issue. Is there any other alternatives or anything that we can do to help get that down outside of our own personal cutting back at home on our use? And secondly, about recycling. It's harder and harder now to get rid of paint and the TVs. I know you guys do a very good job with that 2-3 times a year over on Wolf Road, and that's great. But what about some of the oddball things? Is there any way that we could put money on the side and so we could maybe have a community recycling day or whatever it is, and still, maybe charge residents whatever, a flat $5 or something for so much this and that or whatever. But is there any way that's possible to be done?
Well, I'll tell you what we're working on right now. Let me go back to your water question. The water rates from Oak Lawn are going up for a couple reasons. The water rates from Chicago to Oak Lawn went up considerably. Mayor Emanuel increased the water cost to Oak Lawn. I think it was 25% for a couple years, 3 years in a row, and then 13%, 15%. So some considerable increases from Chicago to Oak Lawn. In the meantime, all the mayors on that southwest water line out of Oak Lawn have been meeting for the last 2 years to build a second line for two reasons: to add capacity, but also to add the possibility of continuing water service when a line breaks somewhere. Right now, if the water main coming out of Oak Lawn breaks down, there's actually no water coming out this way for that so many hours or a day or two while the repairs being made. So the dual line will add capacity, but also adds the duplication, the service that we need. So with that, it's a very expensive project. The price of our water is actually going to continue to go up a little bit over the next couple of years as we average that into our rates. But we are one of the few communities that has four-tier water pricing, conservation water pricing. So as you meet different levels, where the rest of the world works on the more of an item you buy, the best price you get, here the less water you use, the less you pay per 1,000 gallons. So you can control your own water bill considerably if you took made the effort to watch the use. What was it? Oh, the other question. It's funny you ask about the TVs and the paint and the other items that are hard to recycle or throw away. We have a referendum on the ballot this April, asking the homeowners to support or to consider supporting a referendum that would pay for a special program at $2 a month per household, and it's an on-call recycling program. Anybody in the village could call when they have paint to get rid of, TVs, other electronics, and Waste Management will come to the house and do a special pickup. So it's, in my opinion, it's a considerably handy service for all of us. And but we thought we would put that on the ballot as a referendum question, not only to get your opinion and the willingness to pay for that service, but also to get buy-in, to let everybody know how important the recycling is. So that's a question that's on the ballot in the spring, and hopefully you'll support that. I will say that we did get the results of that second poll in.
Okay.
You want to talk about that?
We touched base on the poll. So about 87% of the folks said continue the property tax rebate, and then about 13% said we should keep the money applied to other programs. You know, the interesting thing, Dan, is I had a conversation at church the other day where somebody said, well, why don't you guys just keep it? And I said, well, we're always talking about ways to let you just not take it and put it to a good cause. So that's something we could look at.
But we have done that.
Well. Yeah,
we have made it so that you can put your refund towards open lands, and I think there was a couple other issues over the years that you could put it towards your water bill and that kind of thing. So, but we are very proud of the fact that we've been able to refund about $39 million over the last 15 years, and during that time, or during the last 24 years, we've also without raising taxes special for these projects, have done over $500 million in road work and infrastructure and facilities. So we've done quite a bit with the tax dollars that we've been given. Oh, it looks like I jumped ahead and saw somebody's question.
Okay.
Is that what you're...
Yeah, no, so I just want to give you... So all right, well, thanks, Dan. So we probably have time for one more question, right?
Oh, it's already 5-2.
It's already 5-2. So there's a compound question here from Patrick. Patrick, if you could, why don't you go ahead and ask your questions of the mayor? Patrick, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I was wondering about the infrastructure for fiber on I-80 to get that to businesses in the Orland area, as well as please explain to me the raise from part-time to full-time of the mayor position.
All right, it's Jim Dodge. So I'll take a run at the fiber optic question. That's one of the things that we've been looking at the village broadly, is how to make sure that we get the right technology infrastructure, and that we think that might help for I-80. We also recently put in the budget to hire a chief technology officer. So Frank, we'll just give a quick update on what we've been doing with some of these types of questions like fiber optic and what you're seeing in the marketplace.
Well, fiber in the marketplace continues to evolve and advance. As the construction on LaGrange Road is coming to a close, we have quite a bit of conduit that will be pulling fiber in there. We've also invited several other telecommunication entities to come and bid on the process of having an opportunity to be in that fiber conduit. And that'll help us grow the I-80 corridor as things begin to develop over the next few years.
So that's one part of the question. The other was around the mayor's position going forward being full-time.
Yeah, I'll just say that the village board made a business decision to avoid hiring 2 more full-time positions, that the job of mayor going full-time would be able to fill those needs of economic development coordinator and assist the village manager and the assistant village manager with day-to-day operations. So it was really a business decision that saves the village about $750,000 over the next 4 years, and
it's Jim Dodge. That's how I saw it, was when we took a look at our staffing needs, and we took a look at our strategic plan and some of the advice we had from Matrix Consulting some time back. They had advocated for these other positions, and as a board, we thought that because of his background and his abilities, that this would be a cost-effective way to go get the work done with somebody who's engaged and experienced and passionate. And then, so we went ahead and said, okay, well, we could do these 2 other positions, or we could, do this for the purpose of 4 years, and we'll see how it goes. One of the things we try to do is, test and learn as we do things and we go forward. So that was some of the thinking from the board, and that's how we got to that point. Okay. All right. So Dan, I think we're about at time here. We've only got a couple minutes left. I think we've asked our poll questions. Any closing comments that we want to make?
No, there was a third poll question we won't ask now because I did touch on it, but there is a referendum on in the spring asking about the hazardous waste collection, and it's an on-call program, so it's kind of interesting. Anybody has any kind of electronics, TVs, things that are hard to recycle, cans of paint, you just call Waste Management and they come out and pick it up. So we just want to get everybody's opinion on that program, but we think it's worthwhile. That's why we're looking into it. And
all right,
that's about it.
And just as a closing comment, that we've had a lot of questions that we couldn't get to just based on the volume of the questions. So for everybody that's on the line, thank you. We appreciate you calling. We appreciate the questions. We've captured all the questions as best we can, and we, the village, will reach back out to everybody who's called in with an answer to your specific question, whether we addressed it, during the session tonight or not. So stay tuned, and we'll get you answers to the questions that we couldn't cover in this hour time spot. So with that, thank you again for joining us, and keep the questions and calls coming. Appreciate it. Have a good night.